Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Build a Bot episode. My name's Kent Weir. I'm a PM on the PowerCat team. And with me, I've got...
Matt Farmer. Hello, everybody. I am also a PM on the PowerCat team for Power Virtual Agents. Welcome to the session. What are we going to talk about today, Ken?
We've got some good stuff. So we had Ignite earlier this month. And what we've got is basically an episode that's going to cover many of the features that were recently released in Power Virtual Agents. You ready?
Absolutely. I mean, I could read the docs, but I'm thinking us talking about this is going to be so much more interesting. So let's go for
totally. There's no doubt. Okay, so this is the agenda. This is what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to start off with proactive messaging using Power Automate. This is my favorite feature. There's no question. I'll explain why in a little bit. Then Matt's going to talk about topic variable passing, collaborative comments for those Fusion dev teams, PVA is a skill, and this is pretty cool, voice channel for Dynamics 365 customer service scenarios. So think about being able to use a phone to talk to a chatbot. Pretty cool. So with that said, let's go ahead. Let's take a look at my favorite new feature, proactive messaging using Power Automate. So when we think about typical conversational AI, the user has to have some sort of interest or some sort of intent in order to go ahead and perform some action with a chatbot. So if we take the example of having to enroll in, say, benefits renewals processes, I need to consciously think about that in order to go interact with the bot. I should really go ahead and update my benefits because, every end of December is the opportunity for me to go ahead and update them. But if I forget, then I don't necessarily get that accomplished. And the bot can only do so much if you don't engage with it. But what's different now is that we can actually have a bot reach out to you and say, hey, you should really go ahead and update your benefits. And then it's like, oh yeah, I need to go do that. Let's go do that right now. And so you can imagine there's an unlimited amount of scenarios in which this will work. This is just one of it, but really changes your engagement model when it comes to conversational AI. Now you can initiate those conversations as opposed to passively waiting for them. And that's why I'm pretty pumped about this particular feature. Now, before I get into a demo, I do want to just call out a few prerequisites. This is a feature that works with Microsoft Teams. So your bot must have been at least published once inside of Microsoft Teams. The bot must also be made available to the end users in order for them to be able to go ahead and interact with the chatbot itself. So if a recipient hasn't gone ahead and installed the bot in Microsoft Teams, they're not going to get that. For example, also if they've gone ahead and uninstalled it or blocked it, naturally they're not going to get these requests. So I would say there's a little bit of change management that has to take place in order to go ahead and make sure everyone has access to the bot. Once that's been achieved, then you can go ahead and use this feature. And so we've got a link to the documentation. We'll share that in the description of this video so you can go ahead and check this out for more details. So Matt, does that sound exciting?
Absolutely. Let's go and have a look.
Yeah, let's go take a look. Let's see the demo. You might be wondering, okay, on the intro slide you said, okay, this is a feature in Power Automate. How does this apply to Power Virtual Agents? Great question. How this works is we're actually going to take advantage of the Microsoft Teams connector. And as part of that connector, we can go ahead and post an adaptive card like we see here to a specific Power Virtual Agents chatbot. So you might have been familiar or run into like the Flowbot before, where you can go ahead and proactively send messages from Power Automate as a sort of generic Flowbot in order to interact with users and get them to perform an action. Now what we can go ahead and do is interact on behalf of a Power Virtual Agent chatbot as opposed to the Flowbot. And so what we need to do here is indicate in the post-in that we want to chat with a bot. We can provide a message. Now, in this example, I'm showing an adaptive card so that we've got a more immersive experience. We can also use just post a message to a person as well. And we'll see that a little bit further down here. Now, what we'll go ahead and do is specify the chatbot that we want to go ahead and post this message to. And so this is why, as part of those prerequisites, you need to make sure that users have access to the bot itself. And so this is what's going to unlock how we can go ahead and proactively interact with users. Now, just taking a step back from a scenario perspective, what we're going to go ahead and do is every week we're going to go ahead and run this Power Automate cloud flow. We're then going to go ahead and list all employees from Dataverse who needs a reminder, right? So once a person has gone ahead and actually completed their benefits enrollment, we're not going to nag them because that would be annoying. But for people that haven't completed it, we'll continue to send them this nag every week until they go ahead and complete their benefits enrollment. And so that's what we're going to do is we're going to get a list of employees from Dataverse. We're going to loop through each of them. We're then going to go ahead and prompt them with an adaptive card and give them two options. Do you want to go ahead and enroll your benefits right now, or do you want to receive a reminder a week from now to go ahead and do it? And so we're going to give people the opportunity to choose which action they want to do. Now, to make our interactions a little bit more personable, we're going to go ahead and use the Office 365 connector to get the user profile for the email address that we've previously stored. This will allow to address people by their first names or other details, just making this feel less robotic and more conversational from that perspective. Now, if someone goes ahead and presses on the enroll button, we're going to go down this path and we're going to send them another message into chat. And this time we're not going to send an adaptive card. We're just going to post a message in a chat or channel. Once again, we'll go ahead and post it as a chatbot into that specific bot that we've already deployed. Go ahead and address them by their first name and give them a link that they can go ahead and complete the form. Once they've gone ahead and done that, we're going to go update that table inside of Dataverse so that we don't go ahead and remind them anymore. Now, in the event that they do go ahead and they choose Remind Me, we'll send them an email as well, we'll post another message in the chat as well, addressing them by their first name, just indicating that we'll send them a reminder. And we're not going to go ahead and update the Dataverse database because we want to ensure that they get the reminder the next time this goes ahead and runs. Now, we don't want to wait for a week for this to run, so we can go ahead and manually test this out. So we'll go ahead and click on Test. We'll click on Run Flow. And then what's going to happen is if we flip over to Microsoft Teams and we head over to our Contoso corporate bot, we can see that we've just received an adaptive card. Now, in this case, we have an option of clicking two buttons, Enroll or Remind. And in this case, we're going to just say, you know what, I'm busy right now. Just remind me in a week. And so that is actually going to send a signal back to Power Automate. That isn't something that gets sent to Power Virtual Agents. It gets sent back to Power Automate. And this allows us to go ahead and provide a subsequent message just saying we're going to go ahead and send a reminder in a week. Now, as part of the chatbot, I'm free to engage in other topics at this point by just going ahead and typing. That's going to be essentially a trigger phrase that will then get evaluated, and hopefully we have a topic lined up that we can then go ahead and have additional conversations if required. If not, I just go on and so go about my day and focus on other things. Now, that was the one scenario. We now want to go ahead and show the scenario when we go ahead and enroll. So we'll go ahead and click Test. We'll click Run Flow. We'll click Done here. And this will send off another notification to our chatbot. This time, we're going to go ahead and click on Enroll. Once again, that signal will be sent back to Power Automate. Power Automate was then going to send me another message saying, okay, great, let's go ahead and enroll your benefits. Go ahead and click on this particular form. And so here I could go ahead and go through the benefits enrollment process and get that addressed. And so that's just one example of many that would allow you to go ahead and use this particular feature. The beauty of this feature is that because Power Automate has so many different connectors and triggers, that the possibilities are really limitless. You could be subscribing to events in a particular table or a SharePoint site and then say, hey, I need to now go react or interact with that user. Let's go start a chat conversation. Another particular use case that I'm fond of as well is RPA. In the past, it's been difficult to have a chatbot interact with an RPA bot because RPA processes typically are longer running and you have a timeout on the client. The beauty now is we can go ahead and send a request off to a Cloudflow. The Cloudflow can acknowledge back that, yep, I've received your request. I'm going to go kick off the RPA process. That RPA process could take several minutes, even hours to complete. And you can use this feature to go ahead and send those proactive messages back into the chat canvas without it actually locking up from that perspective. So that's a reason why this is my favorite new feature. I just feel that there's so many different opportunities to increase engagement with your Microsoft Teams bots.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this isn't my favorite feature because I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But I think it allows you to be really quite creative with those. Yes, it's Teams-based scenarios, but there's a lot of things you can do when you kind of can come back and prompt the user and ask them to get involved. And I think we're only just starting to see what those possibly are. But I think we're going to see more customers coming up with things that are really quite interesting and processes that span lots of different interactions. It's really cool.
And we'd love to hear in the comments, what are some of the scenarios that you think that you could use this with? That would be great to see.
Yeah. Thanks, Ken. Well, I admit that is a cool feature, but what I'm going to show you next is a much more cool feature.
Oh, I don't know. Let's see. Let's see.
Yeah, we should do a poll. Okay, people put in the comments which feature is more cool. Okay, I'm going to talk about this feature, and I suppose this one is a feature that I think only hints at its possibilities. I'll explain why I think it's cool. But one of the things we find when working with customers who are building out pretty complicated bots is that we end up getting quite a lot of global variables being passed around and a lot of topics that have quite complex conversation logic. And what this feature allows us to do is be a little bit more like programmers in the way in which we build up our topics. That's not to say it makes it necessarily more complicated, but I used to write code for a living. I do occasionally dabble now, and this feature feels a little bit like the good organized code that I always used to write in the way in which we build up topics within PVA. So what this allows us to do is treat topics a little bit like reusable functions. We can work out what we pass into them, what we pass out, and then by changing what we pass in and out, we can reuse those topics elsewhere within the bot. So it allows you to really organize your bot nicely. And create less complicated individual topics because you're redirecting to others and passing in variables when you do. So yeah, it reduces the need for global variables. So before, where we maybe have a huge list for a complicated bot, you're now really only using them when you absolutely have to. And the topic variable passing is allowing you to move variables around the bot more easily. And another feature that's really part of this is that we have what's called now the variable pane, so you can see all the variables that are within your bot. So I think it's pretty cool. But I'll do a quick demo and show you what I mean. Okay, so I'm going to show you a very, very quick demo of how this works. And you can go and try this out yourself. It's available now and is actually generally available within the bot. So everybody has access to this as it is now. So we have what we call a reusable topic here. And I've just given it a simple trigger phrase, but we're not going to actually use that now. So you can still use trigger phrases with these, but to just show you how it works. So I've got a reusable topic here. I've got a couple of questions I'm asking, and these are questions I would ask all over my bot. So in different flows and different positions. Now, this is a fairly fake scenario, so don't read too much into it, but it shows you how it works. So I've got two questions. What's your favorite color? And tell me something interesting. So I'm calling that as a color entity and just a user's entire response. I did actually use what is your favorite color just because I got to use two words that are spelled differently in British English as opposed to American English, just for fun. So what I can do now, I've defined these variables, is I can make them reusable. And what I do is I set the scope for these variables. So I say that I can receive them from other topics, so I can have them passed in, and I can also set them so that that value gets returned to another topic. So I'm just going to set this one as receives for now, and I'm going to set the other one as something that I have to it gets passed out from this topic as well. So I'm going to set return values to original topics. Okay, so by doing that, if I now look at the variable window up here as well, I can see that I've set them, and I can also see all the other variables I have available to me in this in this topic, in this bot. Just makes it much more easy to manage those things within your entire solution. So I now save that topic, and then I jump across to my calling reusable topic. So how do I call that? Let's just jump into my canvas and get rid of the message here. What I do is I go to redirect to another topic, and I go down to reusable topic there. And what you'll see in this reusable topic is I can define inputs if I choose to. I don't have to do that. And I can also see the outputs of the topic. So the reason I said it's a little bit like programming is if you have experience writing code, you might define a method that has inputs and returns outputs. And this is very, very similar to that, in that I can structure what I pass in if I choose to. So I can pass in the favorite color, and I can also output a variable. So I can take the interesting thing that someone's had, and then I can pass it to a Power Automate flow, for example. So I could create an action here that uses that, uses a Power Automate flow, create it and use it. Now, in interest of time, I'm not going to do that. But other thing I will just point out is we can also, at this point, we can define a variable. So I could define, I could have ask a question here, and I can say color, and then choose the color entity type. I can pass that in, that just called var there, and that would be fine. However, what I can also do, and this is where it gets quite interesting, is I can explicitly pass in red if I want to. So you can treat the reusable topic in different ways depending on what it's for. So in scenarios, for example, where in different parts in the bot, actually physically hard coding the value, like I've hard coded red here, is useful, allows you to have more flexibility in the way the code within the reusable topic works. That's actually a really useful thing to do. So reusable topics. My favorite feature, because I think it just gives you a lot more flexibility and a little bit more structure in the way in which you're building out your bot.
Yeah, I know that's pretty cool. I still like mine, but that's pretty cool because I think we do see customers who want to reuse their logic. This will allow them to go ahead and do that. I think there's kind of an interesting side effect of this as well, in terms of like being able to almost reset a variable as well. You know, as opposed to having to create, say, a new instance of a variable. So I think that gets interesting in terms of how you could override the current value by passing in like that hard-coded value red into that topic itself. So that gets pretty interesting too.
Yeah, and they're definitely with those customers who have much more complicated scenarios where they want to be able to, you know, do interesting things with the variables they're defining in the flow. It's really, as you get more mature with it, this becomes really, really useful. And then the organization of it, being able to, you know, redirect to that topic is important as your bot gets bigger. So I think it's a great feature.
Yeah, very cool.
Now, some more features, and we don't want to make them feel bad, but these are none of these features are our favorite, but they're still good. I mean, I talked about you know, topics as a way to be a bit more structured and a bit more programmer-like in what you do. Obviously, when I wrote code, my code was always very well commented all the way through, so you could follow it. And I certainly never used some of those tooling that you can do to auto-generate comments, you know, resets the var or whatever it's called. No, so comments are great. It definitely helps if you're collaborating on your bot, and particularly if you've got, you know, fusion teams. So if you've got developers working on maybe a bot framework composer part, or you've got different content editors within the bot, then being able to add comments is really useful. And so that's what's been added. It's in preview at the moment, so there's a few more features that need to come, like being able to tag people or notifying them, but it works just like if you're familiar with using Word or PowerPoint and adding comments in there, it works just like that. And it's those extra little features that just need to be added once we finish the preview. But having said that, I still would absolutely recommend teams that have a number of people editing this content go in and make use of this, because it does, again, it makes your bot better, particularly as you scale. who's working on it. So I can show that very quickly.
And I guess one thing to add on this one that has come up with other customers is they want to know, like, where do those comments get stored? And so they end up getting stored inside of Dataverse, but they don't actually move with the bot, right? So if you're doing a lot of like annotation in, say, dev, and you want to go ahead and move that bot to test or to prod, and you've made a bunch of comments, those won't go with it. So those do stay in the environment itself. And I think the other thing just to call out is that this feature's also available in Power Automate and Power Apps as well. And so you're going to see that very common experience across all of the Power Platform services.
Yeah. So we want people to use this across their Power Platform experience, so they understand, it becomes how they build and how they create these things. So this works pretty much exactly as you would expect it to. Once you're in the UI, you create a new comment, you make some text, and you save it. There are obviously the other features that will be coming will be things like being able to tag. So I can say Kent Weir here, and Kent will get a notification. That's not there right now, but there's no reason why you can't start using the comments feature here to make your bot more understandable. And particularly where you've got things like, we see customers building things like loops or calls out to other topics. This really, really helps in understanding how you decided to build the bot in the way you did, as it becomes that little bit more complex, and making sure people can follow it. And also things like, in your content development environment, saying, I should add more text here. I should, help the customer understand what we're asking here. This is a really easy way to do that and keep track of it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think especially like around this time of year where you've got, say, retailers, and you need to be able to make changes quickly, or even just, COVID is obviously still around, and, people are updating their bots, frequently. It helps you to track sort of where you've made changes and help give a little bit more manageability around it as well.
PVA is a skill. So what this allows you to do is project your PVA bot out so that a bot framework bot can consume it. So why would you do that? Well, this one really works very well if you already have an existing bot framework bot. If you have an existing PVA bot, carry on using it, nothing to change here. But this is more, there's a bunch of customers that have used the bot framework technologies to build their own custom bots. And that's wonderful, and we like that. And of course, the technologies that PVA is built on is the Azure Bot Framework. But if you've got a bot framework bot, let's say you've built a bot framework bot that does HR queries, and you want to easily add IT queries to it. Well, you could go and modify that bot, or what you could do is build a PVA bot and expose it as a skill to your existing bot framework bot infrastructure. So you get all the goodness of allowing that IT team to use PVA to build the bot and manage it through PVA. But the point is, you can integrate it into that existing bot infrastructure seamlessly, so that you can have one bot that works with both sets of technologies. The bot framework bot uses all the topics that you define in your PVA bot to work out whether it should route to the bot and then work there. So it's a really, really easy way to bring PVA in and get the goodness of being able to manage the content easily, to create those flows without having to rewrite everything. You can just bring it into existing infrastructure. So it's a really cool feature. The one caveat there is people's next question is, well, does that mean I can also have a PVA bot with a PVA skill? And the answer is not at this point. This is purely for bot framework bots. If you're looking at that scenario, generally the advice will be something like, well, can we just build this all out in PVA? But it's still a cool feature, and it should enable a whole bunch more customers who've been working with bot framework to bring PVA into their estate and make great bots with it.
Yeah, I think the one ask we typically see around this is organizations looking for like that parent-child relationship scenarios, much like you had said around like HR and IT. You may want to just have like a single bot that services, say, your organization, but then you want to be able to like federate it with other particular scenarios and through that routing mechanism that you mentioned. So yeah, that's a pretty cool feature, and it'll be interesting to see how it evolves.
Yeah, really, and I'm really interested to see customers using this one, because I think that it will be a bit magic when that happens. Cool. And finally, this one, and this is kind of all our favorites, because I think it's a signpost for the future and it's very exciting. What we have released, and this is at the moment, this is for customers using Dynamics 365 customer service, so the chat component of that. Now, for those of you who've watched other Built to Bot episodes or some of our architecture series, you'll know that you can make a PVA bot work with Dynamics 365, so that PVA can be the bot component of the conversation. And then if you want to escalate to a human agent, then Dynamics takes that over. So if you have a setup like that, you have PVA plus Dynamics 365, what we sometimes call omnichannel, you can make that infrastructure now present out a voice channel like IVR that customers can call up and talk to. And it uses what we call neural voices, which is kind of human voices created in AI with a neural network. They say they're almost indistinguishable from human. There is a British male that's nearly as suave as me, apparently, but I'm yet to believe that is true. But there's a whole bunch of different voices you can adopt with the bot to make it comfortable for your customers based on the region they're in. It's a very cool scenario. Customers can spend less time waiting in a queue on the phone, more time resolving the issues, and you've got that really easy bot development methodology that PVA provides, so you can add a lot more routes for that customer within the call to resolve their issues. I don't know if they're adding kind of hold music, maybe scratchy hold music that goes in and out of sync. That would obviously make me much more comfortable from a bot experience on the phone. But no, this one, we can't wait to see what people do with this, because it's really enabling a whole new set of use cases, and it's going to be a big deal for a lot of customers, I imagine.
Yeah, it's a natural evolution of the prior offering, right, where you had live chat and various different channels like SMS and things of that nature. But being able to add voice to it as a single package is pretty cool, because in the past we've had to rely on other third-party integration. Naturally, that becomes complex and can be expensive. But having something that's like in the box from that perspective and that is bot ready is pretty cool. So that you'd be able to respond and interact with a PVA bot. Very cool. So yeah, very, very looking forward to see more and more customers onboard this. I know there's been a lot of interest with it.
Yes, absolutely. I did also suggest that this would be a cool way to, triage complaints from my children towards their parents. That maybe we'll demo that scenario in the future. I don't know. That would work too, I imagine.
That would be interesting for sure.
Cool. And that's all the new features we had to show today, but some exciting ones there. Okay, so that's all the new features we had for today.
That was awesome. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Do check out a link in the description that talks about all of these features as part of the Ignite announcement. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Always enjoy those. Thanks for taking this video in, and we'll catch you soon back on the channel. Take care.
Thank you.